Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Politics Social. I hope you're all well. It is Wednesday, the 24th of July 2024. Big shout out to everyone in the chat. If you'd like to join this conversation, please just subscribe to the channel. You don't even have to click the bell notification icon, just subscribe and you'll be able to join us. Did Graham have too much birthday cake? No, there wasn't any cake actually. I'm still under the weather, so yeah. Thanks to everyone for the homemade recipes, and I have been to see the doctor last week. I think I'm going to go back again as soon as I'm back in Durham. I'm at Price. Hello, we got Vendetta, we got Steve's Retro Loft, we got Vortex Lisa, we got Shropshire Chris and Louise Darby in there. We got Billy Kershaw. We got Orion Does Things. We got Leanne Scott. We also got Colin, Benjamin, Jane, and others. Hello, everybody. Sorry if I missed you in there. We've got One Angry Pagan as well. All right, mate. Okay, let's get into it. Yesterday, there was the final debate on the King's Speech, which lays out the government's legislative agenda for the year. Not for the Parliament, but for the year. Okay, so not for the next 5 years, but for the next year. And there were 39 bills in there, and there was one specifically about reducing child poverty. And Labour claim to have a plan, which I assume they have or have not shared with their MPs. And Starmer wanted to, get the King's Speech through with the support of all 411 elected Labour MPs, which is understandable. However, the SNP put in a spoiler amendment, as they have done in the past. They've done this over Gaza, they've done this over other things, where they have made it very difficult for certain MPs to toe the party line. Benjamin's asking if I'm going to be streaming PMQs today. Yes, I will. I'll definitely be doing that. Might be a bit more subdued than normal. Anyway, back to the matter, back to the meat of the discussion. So they wanted to get it through with 411 MPs, and 7 of them voted for an SNP motion against a 3-line whip not to do so. And Starmer's response, or the whip's response, or Labour's response, however you want to frame it, was to suspend these 7 MPs immediately, with immediate effect, from the party. They're still MPs. They're still members, from the government. They're still the parliamentary party. God. So they're still MPs. They're still members of the Labour Party, but they're no longer members of the Labour parliamentary party. They have lost the whip, as they say, for 6 months. And, okay, I'm going to say it. I kind of agree with Starmer, and I want you to tell me why he was wrong to do this. I look at the list of people who made a stand. You've got John McDonnell, he's privately educated. That doesn't matter, but, whatever. He was one of Corbyn's key group, all of whom had pretty much, nearly all were privately educated. I should point that out. In fact, Andrew Murray is actually a part of the aristocracy. Yeah. Anyway, he was the shadow chancellor under Jeremy Corbyn, and he doesn't like Starmer. I mean, he's made it very, very clear he doesn't like Starmer. Rebecca Long-Bailey, she ran against Starmer for leader of the party and lost. Zara Sultana, she's brilliant on social media. She puts out fantastic well done TikTok videos that I wish other MPs in Labour would emulate, or be able to have the talent to do that kind of thing, and they don't. But at the same time, I'll come to it in a minute, and then you've got Richard Bergen, another part of the Corbynite faction of Labour. And then we've got a few others. It might not be as, as famous, but we have got Ian Byrne, MP, who is our MP here in Liverpool for West Derby. So he's not a Labour MP at the moment. He's an independent. He'll be sitting with the independents. He'll be sitting on the Conservative benches. Although some MPs, some of Labour MPs are having to sit on the Conservative benches just because the government benches are full. And so many of them got elected. But the fact remains that all of these MPs are the kind of MPs that either came in 2019 or they were followers of the Corbynite sect in Labour, which led to 2 general election defeats, 3 council elections where they lost hundreds of seats, 1 failed referendum, because apparently Labour were on the side of Remain. Who knew? And 1 major defeat in the European elections, in the EU elections in 2019, which heralded the downfall of that particular iteration of the Labour Party. These MPs come across to me, and I'm going to upset some people in the chat. I might lose a few subscribers. Who knows? I might lose a few patrons by saying this. But I feel like these MPs are MPs who just want to protest, that rather than actually work to making Britain a better place to live. And they're still in protest mode, even though they were in government, which gave them a hell of a lot of power to sit on select committees, to work with MPs, to work with ministers and secretaries of state to alleviate child poverty. But they decided to do this to sort of test the waters, see how it'll go if you put a protest vote in. And they've seen how it goes because Labour have got 411 MPs. They don't need you. Get over yourself. And someone said, oh, this makes Labour a dictatorship. And I'm like, no, this makes it a party that if you don't want to be part of the party, if you want to vote for legislation put forward by a different party, I've got an idea. Why don't you go and join that party instead? You know, when I got chucked out of the Labour Party several years ago for standing against our local candidate here in West Derby in Liverpool, I thought, fair enough. I thought I'd make a joke about it. And when I went down to the Labour Party conference in Brighton that year, I did try and get in, even though I left the party. I said, but I still want all of the same rights and privileges that I had before. Because that was a bit of a joke about Brexit, because that was the Brexit position that the previous leader of the opposition, previous but one, was taking, which was that we should leave the EU but still have all the privileges of being part of the EU, which I thought was mad. But yeah, I got it. You know, you join a club, whatever it is, you join a gym and they have a sign and it says, don't use the gym equipment naked. And so, if you do, I could understand why they revoke your gym membership. Not that that's happened to me. That's my excuse anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna have a look through the chat now just to see what people are saying, because I assume that there's going to be a bunch of you that disagree with me on this one, and let's have a talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's I don't want anyone being nasty or having digs or whatever. I just feel like the way that Brexit wasn't discussed in the run up to that election. On one level, it deeply pissed me off. But on another level, putting on my sensible hat, this isn't my sensible hat. I've got another one. Putting on my sensible hat, I thought, actually, if I was in Keir Starmer's position, that's what I would do. And I hated saying it. I hated thinking it. It's not the optimal situation. I don't feel in any, in any by a stretch of the imagination. And I feel the same way about this. I think that the 2-child cap on benefits is absolutely abhorrent. And by the way, if you're earning 50 grand a year and you get tax credit, you get extra tax credit for every child. This only affects, say it with me, it only affects the poor, because this is benefits. You don't get any additional benefits. You don't get any additional universal credit. But the middle class parents do, no matter how many kids they have, because they get the working family tax credit. So I don't think it's fair. I would like to see the end of it. The rumblings are they have a plan. They're going to put a task force in to alleviate child poverty. Labour have done this before. They lifted millions of children out of poverty when they came in last time. And I think genuinely that they will do it again. But in order to do that, they have to run the show. They have to. It's just the way it is. Right, let's get into it. One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for the super chat. Badger plushie arrived yesterday. I've called him Gramlick Brock Angry Badger. I need to get, and I get the need for party discipline, but not a good place to make a stand. Very good point. Very good point. I don't disagree. Again, like I'm thinking, I get why people find that particular policy abhorrent, but the way to get rid of it is to stay in the government and have those discussions in select committees, put questions forward in a debate. You know, there's nothing stopping a Labour MP standing up and saying to Yvette Cooper, the new Home Secretary, who's been brilliant, by the way. I don't know if anyone's seen any videos of her in the last couple of days. Oh, my God, she's on fire. But they can stand up and say, you know, this is wrong. I think you should do this. I think, why aren't you doing this? I asked the question. From a position of power, from a position of the governing party. I mean, you might not be part of the government. You might be a backbench MP, but you can still affect things. You can still sit in select committees. You don't need to be a minister. You don't have to be a Secretary of State to do that. And I think that is the way that it should be done in our party system. And I don't know, like, I wish it was on a different topic, as one Angry Pagan's just sagely pointed out. You know, what a hill to die on. But also for those MPs, like, how stupid. I don't want to sound like, you know, I think they're all decent people. I've got nothing against them per se. I think the heart's in the right place, but I don't think this was the way to go about it. Because we're a couple of weeks into the new government. This was the vote on the King's Speech, which laid out the legislative agenda for Labour for the next year, for the government for the next year. They wanted everyone on board. And here's the kicker. These MPs stood on a party manifesto that explicitly ruled out immediately getting rid of the 2-child benefit cap. And what's more, and this is going to, this for me is the coup de grace. In 2017, in the Jeremy Corbyn manifesto of 2017, it said it was going to stick to the 2-child cap for 2 years after the election. Why? Because they need to cost stuff. They need to find out how much money is available, how many things they can move around in order to take that cap off. I guess it's more complex than it sounds. And even the Corbyn administration in Labour acknowledged that fact and put it into the manifesto in 2017. So, okay, let's discuss. I'll stop monologuing. Got a couple of super chats here. Thank you very much, Johnny Copperhead, for that very, very generous £20 super chat. Starmer is right. If you are an MP elected under the Labour Party banner, you don't get to defy a 3-line whip on the very first vote in Parliament with no consequences. Just look what Sunak's weakness led to. Very good point. I mean, Johnny, there'll be people who'll say, but they've got such a large majority, what does it matter? But I feel it does matter, because it's got to be like, we are a party, this is us. If you don't like it, other parties are available. This is the way we're going to do things. And those 7 MPs, I guarantee none of them would have won their seat as an independent. They won their seat. They got that job. They got that 80 grand a year job because they were part of Labour, because they were part of the Labour election machinery. I've stood as an independent in this constituency. I got a handful of votes. I got more than some candidates in for other causes, but won't go into that. The point is, without a party behind you, it is very, very, very difficult to get elected. Not impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but it is. It's difficult. It's difficult. David Walsh, thank you very much for the €10 super chat. The whole world is watching. If Starmer can be bullied by a handful of rebels in month one, he will lose all credibility at home and abroad. This isn't about kids. It's British leadership is back. Thank you very much for the super chat, David. And I agree. So let's get some dissenting voices in here. Nick and Diff. Those of you complaining about this result don't understand how politics works. It's in the Labour hating kids. It's disciplining the party. Nick and Diff is right. I agree. Roberts saying, Graham, you're speaking the truth. They broke the 3-line whip. Thank you. Zarvi the cat, though, is having a pop again. You love the sound of your own voice, don't you? Would you want me to sit here in silence? Is that other YouTube channels? I don't know why people come on here to criticise and go, I don't like this channel. I don't like your personality. I don't like the fact that you talk. What am I supposed to do? Do you want me to tell you what's happened in politics and my opinion on it through interpretive dance or something? Oh my God, can we have a decent conversation here without resorting to ad hominems? Jane saying Graham's right. This is bad. It's a bad look. I think it's bad luck and a bad luck. But Starmer has to show strength. I'm sure he'll drop it later. We know how to do this. It's classic Labour. Indeed. Jez Hunt says, I'm sorry, Timmy, your 2 older siblings get to eat, but not you. But on the bright side, look how strong Mr. Starmer looks and stop crying, says Jez. Jez, I get that. I get that point of view entirely. Thanks to the Tories, there are 1 in 4 children now living in poverty in this country. And there are many people, myself included, who have decided not to have kids because my partner has 2 kids and it's per household. So it doesn't matter those kids spend time with their dad and their stepdad. If something awful happens, God forbid, to me or Catherine, we wouldn't get any extra support for that child, even though it would be my first, because it would be her third. And so we made that decision, and it's heartbreaking for me. You know, it's not the position that I thought I would be in at this age. You know, a lot of things in my life have been turned upside down by the Tories, by the Toffs, by the private school mafia. And yeah, you could say, oh, Graham, you got a chip on your shoulder, you're bitter about it. And yeah, I am. And I want to see this cap lifted. Absolutely 100%. But voting with the SNP, voting with a rival party in the first vote in Parliament, you know, when you have finally got into government, the first Labour governmental King's speech for 14 years, and you vote against it? Come on. Labour social, politics socialist. I had something to read there. Put in Aza, thank you. I think Starmer missed a chance. He claimed to govern for everyone, so why not allow a free vote on the matter and say I'm willing to work with the opposition? Because it was the King's speech. It was a 3-line whip. And they do have that opportunity when they have votes to have a 1-line whip, a 2-line whip, or a 3-line whip. But I agree that we have been not really governed for many years, and we're taking it for granted that MPs will just vote on whatever they want to vote on and stand up and make an arse of themselves in Parliament on the Conservative side, time and time again, without any real sanctions being put on them. It took a mountain of terrible things that Boris Johnson did just to get him out of out as Prime Minister, and then it was a year later before he was actually ousted as an MP. Disgraced former Prime Minister, disgraced former MP. But it took a long bloody time. And for a lot of that time, a lot of his party had his back for no matter what he did. Don't forget, he survived Partygate within his own party. Everyone else in the country was up in arms, as you saw. But within his own party, they were like, nah, we'll let it slide. That's fine, He's a vote winner. We want to keep our voters sweet. So yeah, and look, I'm enjoying this conversation. I think there's two sides to this. Daily Blase, my MP is one who had the whip removed, and I thought he was an idiot for doing it. They gave Starmer no choice. Remember when Sunak didn't remove the whip for those dissenting? He looked weak. Well, I mean, he didn't just look weak, he was weak. And people took advantage of that. Not just his own MPs, but also, don't forget, people in industry, the oil barons, tobacco barons, the arms manufacturers, the people that the Tories like to cozy up to. You know, they knew that they could kick him around. Not to mention the press. Those MPs put country first and party second, just like Sir Starver promised he would do. That's from Tim. Yeah, and now they're part of the party. One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for this, for the super chat, mate. This absolutism from those who have already made up their minds is quite frankly ridiculous. Recognise nuanced people. They've only been there 3 weeks. Yeah. But look, One Angry Pagan, I just can see that why people are upset about it. It makes sense to me. Like, this is an abhorrent law that the Tories brought in, and I'm sure Labour want to get rid of it. But even under Corbyn in 2017, they said that they were going to keep it for at least 2 years. Now, I think they're going to scrap it by the end of the year. You know, I might be wrong. Not going to bet the house on it. Not that I have a house, but, you know, if I had a house, I wouldn't bet it on it. But I'd be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked. And you can come here, you know, we'll meet up in Durham City Centre or Liverpool City Centre, wherever you want to meet, and you can get a big fish from the fishmonger, right? And just slap me across the face with the fish. Okay, if this 2-child cap isn't gotten rid of within 2 years. I think it'll be a much shorter period than that. But I think it's going anyway. And I think that these MPs would have done better for their constituents. And don't forget, here in West Derby, I am a constituent of Ian Byrne. And Darren's just said he's one of the constituents as well. I would rather have a MP who is part of the governing party who can actually get shit done, rather than someone heckling from the opposition benches. Do you want to be a party of protest or a party of power? That was the gauntlet thrown down by Keir Starmer. David Faulkner, thank you very much for the 78 Hong Kong dollars. That's incredibly generous. Thank you, all the way from Hong Kong. I'm not a dissenting voice, as Starmer has to do what's right. I just make the point that if you can't tackle child poverty head first, what's the point of a massive majority? Well, I think they are going to be tackling it head first. Again, I could be wrong, you know. And if I am, slap me with a fish. Slap me with a haddock. I think that they're putting in, they've already said, part of the King's speech, they aim to tackle child poverty. They're bringing in a task force to suss out what needs to be done. And then they're going to get it done, which is a very Starmer-right move. Starmer has been head of a very large organisation before when he was director of public prosecution, in charge of the CPS, and he is like this. He'll go out, he will get all the facts together before making the policy. And one of the facts that was withheld from Labour until they won was just how absolutely criminally the Tories have been running our budget. They've been stealing from the poor and giving to the rich. We heard Rishi Sunak brag about the fact that he had taken money from inner city areas, deprived inner city areas where there's a lot of child poverty, and he'd given it to places like Tunbridge Wells. Ha ha ha. And he laughed about it while drinking Pimm's. Well, I don't know if he drinks, but you know, when everyone was having a cocktail party in the garden of a stately home, probably in Tunbridge Wells. Oh, we're taking money from the poor, giving to the rich. And it's not until Labour really get a chance to dig into those numbers, which until they became part of the government, they couldn't really get access to, that they can go, okay, what's practical, what's not. What Labour have done straight away is stop the incredibly cruel and expensive, grossly immoral Rwanda scheme. What they have done is they've shut down the Bibi Stockholm immediately. Like, it's gone. It went yesterday, I think. They've actually decided to sell it off because it's a disgraceful way to treat people, to put them in these inhumane accommodation while you don't process their asylum. bills. Someone was complaining yesterday about one of the flights to Rwanda was being used to return immigrants to failed asylum seekers to Vietnam. And I was like, well, they're failed. What do you want to do? We keep the ones that we processed and said, yeah, you can stay. If you're a failed asylum seeker, we're not going to let you in, you know? I can't take everyone. Well, I'd like to. Let's get the economy back on its feet first. Johan said, so despite the King's speech stating Labour will tackle child poverty, people are complaining about one specific possible policy that isn't going to be the right way. Well, Johan, you're right. That's what I'm saying. They've said in the King's speech they're going to tackle child poverty. There is one part of it that needs to be tackled, but there is a load of other things, the 2-child cap, but there's a load of other things that need to be done. We need to be putting money into deprived areas, deprived inner city areas. We need to be improving social care. We need to be improving healthcare. We need to be improving education in these areas, something the Tories were not interested in doing because they could afford to opt out, because none of the horrible things that the Tories have done affected them. If they had a child who was suffering from anxiety or from mental health problems, or a child who was grieving because they had lost a parent, the Tories could afford to pay for a private counsellor, a private psychiatrist, someone to speak to for that kid, for their kid. If it was a working class kid, good luck, mate. Legal aid. You've got a grievance, you want to go to court, your landlord's throwing you out for no reason. You're rich, well-heeled landlord throws you out. The Tories are like, yeah, that's fair enough. If you can afford it, if you're the Sun newspaper, if you're Rupert Murdoch, you can pay people off. That's fine. If you've got the money, you can go to court. You can pay the lawyers. You got the money. If you're working class, you can't. And we'll take all those services away from working class people. We'll have a 2-year waiting list at the NHS. We'll have a 1-year waiting list just for a simple diagnosis of something like ADHD, which honestly, you can diagnose in about 10 minutes. Have you met people with ADHD? Shinzed said, Tim, Starmer wasn't being cruel. He's demonstrating to noob MPs that they need to follow 3-line whip and the consequences of not doing so. It's not about the kids. I agree. Lawrence says, I think it's a response to Tim. I think it's because it was the King's speech. If it's in your manifesto programme, you can't be seen soft on your MPs rebelling against the manifesto they were elected with. Yeah, really good point, Lawrence. They stood on this platform. This was in the manifesto. It did mention the 2-child cap. In fact, Angela Rayner was tackled about it quite a few times when she was in debate running up to the election. She, at the SNP in particular, said, targeted them about it. And she said, I hate this. I don't want this to be the way it is. And she's a woman who grew up in poverty, looking after her mum, being a carer, pregnant at an early age, as a single mum, and she's worked her way up to be Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I mean, that is phenomenal. And yet she has still got those working class roots, and she knows how difficult it is for families. And she knows how important Sure Start was for young families at that time, something Labour brought in, something that the Tories got rid of, along with the libraries, along with the youth centres. So it's the King's speech, and the SNP knew exactly what they were doing in this, and we've had this conversation before. This isn't the first time that something like this has happened in Labour under Starmer, where he has put the foot down because MPs have rebelled and they've had the whip taken from them or some other punishment. And people have said, oh, this is disproportionate. But again, this is party discipline. This is the way it works. And the Greens and the SNP, they know that Labour politicians in particular find it very, very difficult to vote against something that they find, to vote for, or against it, but vote for something they find personally deeply immoral. And most Labour MPs are very moral people. And like I say, I don't have a problem with these 7 MPs. I think they're good people. I don't think they're evil, out to get everyone like I think about the Tories. But don't forget, the Tories are now in opposition. They might set similar traps for Labour. But you remember last year, was it, when Jenny Jones, the Green peer, who was a Brexiteer for some reason, God knows why, she said that we're going to have this motion that's going to kill this bill. We're going to have a killer bill or something that will kill this motion stone dead. And it wasn't true. It just wasn't. Like, it would have just gone back, because it had gone through on a nod, and it would have just gone back to the House of Commons. It would have taken a couple of extra days. That was it. It would not have killed the bill. And the Labour lords abstained on it. It was like, why are you abstaining? We could have killed this horrible bill, whatever it was, whether it was torturing immigrants or the protest bill or, I don't know, just being horrible. Most of the bills that the Tories put forward were just being horrible. And yet they knew it wouldn't work, but it would generate really good headlines for the other side to go, look, Labour don't care about X, Y, Z because they wouldn't vote for our thing. And it's like, it's not our party. It's someone else's party. Other parties are available. So anyway, causing loads of fight here in the chat. Sorry. Everyone, please stay civil. No ad hominems, please. 2-child cap is on child tax credit, not child benefits, Martin Lewis. Actual child benefits aren't capped. Oh, right. Sorry, I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was on the benefits. Okay, all right. Nor even red Tories, just blue. I'm done. I won't ever vote Labour again, says Philip. And I hope Philip remembers that in 5 years' time, when Labour have hopefully transformed the country into something that it is not now. But I want you to bear in mind, Philip, right now, just how bad it is in this country. People not having children, young people not being able to get on the housing ladder, old people not being looked after by the state because the state don't care about them, and people don't want to pay more tax. So we've got to keep the tax down. People who are coming here fleeing war, being treated like criminals, children being abused in the system, going missing, being trafficked, and the Tories turning a blind eye. Oh, they're migrant children. We don't care about them. The level of cruelty, the level of neglect. Go and have a look at any city centre, especially up here in the north, and see what places have become under the Tories. Boarded up shop fronts. You know, the commerce has just gone because people don't have the money to spend. The prices of everything doubling. Don't forget, it was only 2010 when a pint was on average £2.20. Now it's on average over a £5 for a pint at the pub. You know, there's so many parts of this where it's like, at the moment, I want you to remember just how bad it is. 1 in 4 children living in poverty. 1 in 5 pensioners living in poverty. People waiting 2 years for routine operations on the NHS. And in those 2 years, they're waiting for a hip or they're waiting for a knee replacement. They are in crippling, agonising pain every day until they get that treatment, until they get that operation. The waiting list under Labour was a matter of weeks. No one was waiting over a year. No one. In fact, let's look at the number of people coming over in boats under Labour. None. We had a deal. With France. If you came over on a boat, we'll send you back. I wish someone had called up Suella Braverman yesterday and pointed out to her that and asked her how many people came over in small boats in 2015. No one. How many people came over in 2016? No one. It was only because of Brexit. It was only because we pulled out of the Dublin Agreement with France and other EU countries that where people came over here on boats, we couldn't take them back to Calais. Couldn't take them back to France. We had to take them in. And then the government had a policy of not processing the claims, so that these hotels filled up and people saw that these people were given somewhere to live in a hotel. They were seeing the veterans living on the streets, army veterans living on the streets, while these people from some other country are being put up in a hotel for months, years on end, because the Tories weren't processing their claims on purpose, because divide and rule. It was the old catchphrase, wasn't it, of the British Empire. And the Tories are the continuation of that. So just want you to remember just how bad things, just look around, have a wander around your hometown, and just remember now, take some pictures on your phone, and just remember how bad things are. And in 5 years' time, if they haven't improved, please go with God. Don't vote Labour. Vote for somebody else. But if they have improved measurably, then Labour have done more good than any other ruling party for a very, very long time. Hang on a sec. Sorry. God. I've got a name for me cough. I'm going to call me cough Murdoch. I missed the super chat. Hang on. Got to go back. Johnny. Thank you very much for the super chat, Johnny. Hang on. I'm going to drink some more water. Oh, God. Right. Johnny, thank you very much. £5 super chat. My irony muscle was tickled muchly by Cruella Beavermutt saying it was outrageous that Labour weren't getting rid of this disgusting Tory law. Did she actually say that? Bloody hell. Thank you for the super chat, Johnny. Oh, my God. Cruella Braverman. Oh, well, I should have called up yesterday, but I'm not great at the moment. I thought I'll have a bloody coughing fit in the middle of it, but I would like to, because she was like, have you been to Rwanda? I'd be like, yeah. I've been to Ukraine as well. I've picked up Ukrainian refugees and brought them back here. They didn't have to be put in a small boat. I'm a people trafficker to them, you know? But the thing is that there is a safe way of getting to the country if you're from Ukraine. If you are from Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, there is no safe way of getting to this country. But yeah, I couldn't listen to much of her. She was just so sanctimonious and just horrible. Clupid Blobber Pope. We were told, hold them to account when they're in power. Now they're in power. We're being told, just wait 5 years. Well, I mean, it's been 3 weeks, Clupid. Come on. Like, yeah, we will hold them to account, but I want results. And I don't know, maybe in the last couple of years, just because I've been so bitterly disappointed by... I was so bitterly disappointed by the lack of opposition to Brexit, amongst other things. The lack of the will to get rid of the Tories and yeet them out of office years ago. I mean, they should have gone in 2015. And maybe if David Miliband had been in charge instead of Ed Miliband, maybe that would have happened. I don't know. But I saw a Labour Party that I felt wasn't fighting for me, especially when it came to Brexit. Labour MPs would. Labour MPs would join us on stage at one of our rallies or on the marches that we were on. They'll join us for the march. And yeah, it was great to see individual Labour MPs giving us their support. But we never felt that we had the support of the Labour Party. It seemed that in those days that the Labour Party thing was to do the Tories' bidding. Like, you know, support the Tories' disgusting, horrific, hard Brexit. A Brexit that has plunged millions of children in this country from poverty into abject poverty. Into, you know, extreme poverty, I should say. Into extreme poverty. They knew, I mean, they must have known. You can either argue that, you know, the top brass in Labour at the time just didn't know the damage that the EU would do to the working classes in this country. But they must have. They must have known it would make the poor poorer, which it has. It demonstrably has. It's the economy, stupid. The economy hasn't grown as a result of Brexit. Have a look on the GDP of the UK as measured in US dollars. And I know that GDP isn't a great way of, you know, ascertaining the wealth of a nation. But you can see it. You can see the point where the credit crunch kicks in and our economy goes down. And then it starts slowly getting up again. not as fast as it should have done because of bloody austerity and terrible, terrible Tory policy, which meant that people had less money to spend. Got less money to spend, you're not going to buy so many things, are you? If you're only spending your money on food or eating or rent, if all your money's going on the absolute essentials to exist, to just about survive, you're not going to be going out and buying things that you don't need, which is disposable income. Tories don't realise that if you're not buying stuff from these places, then these places aren't making money. They're having to lay more people off because they can't afford to pay their staff. Shops are closing, places of commerce closing, and then you've got more people on the dole, you've got more people out of work, you've got more people working on these horrific 0 hours contracts, which Labour have promised to get rid of. We're moving towards a better place now, but where we were back under the previous Labour leadership, before Starmer came in, they helped the Tories plunge more children into poverty than are going to be affected by the 2-child cap being in place for another few months. And I'm sure, look, again, get the fish out one at a time, make a queue, hit me in the face with a fish if I'm wrong about this. But I do think that Labour are going to get rid of that cap because they know it's immoral. They want to get rid of it. It's very clear. Angela Rayner wants to get rid of it. She is the Deputy Prime Minister. She's in charge of all this stuff now as part of her portfolio. Captain Bart Roberts, hello. Thank you very much for the super chat. Please, Graham, phone your GP. That cough's not good. I've got my nursey head on. Oh, thanks, Captain. No, I've been to the GP last week and I got all tested, stethoscope, everything. My airways are clear. It's just a bacterial infection, apparently, that's going around. I'm on antibiotics for it. If it hasn't improved by Friday, which will be a week, I will go back to the doctors. So, yeah, Friday. Also, Graham, there are no butterflies in my town, with even the Buddleia in full bloom. Is that the water? No, it's Jeremy Clarkson. Jeremy Clarkson was complaining about the lack of butterflies. It's because of all the pollution. It's because of all the shit in the rivers. It's because of all the pollution in the air. That's why. Labour are constrained to a single policy. They have the power now to reform the entire benefit system if it's the best route, says Walk. Yeah, I agree with you. Klubit says, I wasn't expecting them to turn around and be the Green Party, but the bad things they've done, gestured towards, for me, has crossed the line. We've got no choice in a way but to see what happens. And this early on in the Labour administration, if we're going to be like, that's it, I'm done with you, it does seem a little bit premature. And yeah, my MP up in Durham, Mary Foy, she might have voted against it. She might have lost the whip because she's very left-wing. She's very, morally driven. But she actually missed the vote. She had to abstain because she wasn't there because she's still recovering from her cancer treatment. Because she was campaigning, while she was being treated for cancer. But I know some of these people. They're good people. That's what I'm saying. I'm not, I don't have a beef with them. I'm not saying, what you're doing is morally wrong. And I kind of get their point that, we don't want children to suffer. We don't want children to grow up in poverty in one of the richest countries in the world. But at the same time, there's a way to do it. And you're in government now. You don't need to protest. You can make things happen, even as a backbencher, so long as you're in the governing party. And these 7 MPs, they're not in the governing party. It'll be interesting to see what happens in 6 months' time, whether they decide to take the whip or remain as independent MPs, or maybe they might join another party. Maybe they'll join the Greens. Might be more their flavour, Simon, this is going to be the last comment because I've gone way over time. Simon, if Starmer didn't want Imran Hussein, he shouldn't have relisted him prior to the general election. Starmer knows Hussein votes Bradford before Westminster. Yeah, that's fair enough. I don't think anyone comes out of this particularly smelling of roses, except maybe the SNP who set this trap for Labour. Sometimes, it's a bit of a no-win situation. And Kobayashi Maru, isn't it? Graham, my bees will not drink the water from the tap. When I make sugar water for them, they will drink rain or pond water with the sugar. I'm on bottled water to drink and cook. Oh my God. maybe this water is actually what's doing me in. And then, there's loads of comments coming in. We can continue this conversation, I think. It's going to go away anywhere later today, because it's going to be the first Prime Minister's questions ever that is going to appear on this channel, where Labour are actually in the driving seat. So it's going to be the first Prime Minister's questions where someone who's not a Conservative is actually standing up. And I've been doing PMQs since Boris Johnson's time. So Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, and now Rishi Sunak, and now we're going to have our first Starmer debate. So we'll see how it goes. I might need to make new pop-ups for it. But if you want to talk about this, we'll have a discussion. It should finish around, it starts at 12, finishes around 12:45. We'll have a discussion about it. If there's anything that you really wanted to say that I've not had time to read in the chat, because obviously the chat's been coming quite thick and fast. But yeah, it's not a great situation to be in, is it? But I understand why those Labour MPs felt that they wanted to vote for the SNP motion. But I also understand why Starmer has come down on them like a ton of bricks, especially as it was the King's Speech, and for the other reasons that I've mentioned in the show. So, I don't expect, if you come along to this broadcast or the stream, to just, argue against, what's been done. I don't think I've probably convinced you any other way, but maybe you have. Maybe there's some people in the chat who have convinced some other people who are watching this to be a little less ruthless in the treatment of, or that Starmer should be less ruthless in the treatment of MPs. All I'll say is, at this point, this early on into the Labour administration, it's probably what I would have done. Sorry. Just wait and see. Wait and see. And I know that's going to annoy a lot of people to say wait and see, but it has only been 3 weeks. And and I said this before the election. Come on. Labour have been handed the shit sandwich to end all shit sandwiches after 14 years of Tory sadism and misrule and incompetence. And they've got a cleaning up job to do. And that starts with having party discipline. If you want to be part of the party, if you want to be part of this party, then, toe the line. Right, thanks for watching. Give us a like if you liked it. Give us a dislike if you disliked it, because, it's all interaction, isn't it? Thank you very much for everyone in the chat for joining us today. Like I say, I'll be back at 12 o'clock for Prime Minister's Questions. Watch party. Yes, I will talk over it. So if you want to watch it without me talking over it, feel free to watch it on the BBC Parliament channel. Until then, I will say thank you so much for watching. Phil will be back here in the morning at 9:30. And until then, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.